at the most critical contract signing of his life. With hundreds of investors watching, the lawyer from Vanguard Capital stopped mid-signature and asked, "Excuse me, but where is the chief architect of Nexus AI? We need Miss President Collins's signature, according to the contract." The color drained from my father's face as I walked in, my security badge on full display. For the last 5 years, I'd lived in a strange limbo inside my father Robert's reconstructed family. I was somewhere between a daughter and an unwanted ghost who paid the bills. Every month, I transferred $17,000 to the household account, a figure that covered nearly 80% of all expenses for a home where I was treated like a burden. The new Italian marble in the kitchen, my money, Jessica's weekly spa treatments, and her designer wardrobe, my money, Caleb's brand new sports car for his 21st birthday, also my money. Emma handles some tech stuff for the company, my father would say dismissively to his associates. The truth was, I'd single-handedly dragged his failing construction company, Collins Lux Homes, into the 21st century, saving it from bankruptcy. The $40 million government contract they'd won last year, I wrote every line of the technical proposal, staying awake for 3 straight days to meet the deadline. But at the celebration dinner, Robert raised a champagne glass to Caleb, praising his stepson's innate leadership. My stepmother, Jessica, was the master of the narcissistic family system. With her as the queen, my father became the willing enabler, sacrificing me to keep her happy. Her son, Caleb, was the perfect golden child, entitled to everything and responsible for nothing. And I was the scapegoat, the built-in excuse for every problem, the one who was always too difficult, too quiet, too much. The secret I kept was that my tech stuff was a billion-dollar AI company called Nexus AI. They thought I had a simple 9-to-5 job. They never asked why I had a private parking spot downtown or why David Chen, the CEO of the legendary venture capital firm Vanguard Capital, was on my speed dial. I had learned to make myself small to survive in that house. But I was about to teach them that some things, when compressed, don't just break. They detonate. The night of the party, I tried to reach my father one last time, to find the man he used to be. Before he met Jessica, before the money and the bitterness, he was a dad who celebrated my mind. I found him in his study and handed him a small, dusty trophy from my childhood. "Remember this?" I asked. It was from the state science fair, for a robotics project we had built together when I was 12. He glanced at it, his face unreadable for a moment, and I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe the man who had called me his brilliant girl was still in there. Then he set it down on the desk with a dismissive thud. "That was a long time ago. Emma, it's time to stop living in the past and think about your real family." He gestured vaguely in the direction of the living room, where Jessica and Caleb were greeting guests. "Jessica needs you to be a team player. Caleb needs your support. That's what matters now." The last thread of hope inside me didn't just fray, it snapped. The man I was mourning hadn't just disappeared. He had been replaced by this stranger who saw me as nothing more than a resource for his new, better family. Later, surrounded by the buzz of the party, Jessica cornered me near the grand staircase. She was draped in a diamond necklace I knew for a fact my last wire transfer had paid for. She held a leather-bound folder, her smile as sharp and cold as broken glass. "Emma, darling," she began, her voice loud enough for the people nearby to hear. "Your father and I have a wonderful surprise that shows what a united family we are." She opened the folder to reveal share transfer documents. "To help Caleb start his investment portfolio, you're going to sign over your little startup shares." I looked at the papers, then at my father, who had joined her side, nodding in agreement. This wasn't a request. It was an ambush. "These shares could be worth a lot one day," I said quietly, testing him. "Could be?" My father cut in, his voice firm. "But Caleb's future is happening now. He needs this. Family helps family." His eyes were cold, devoid of the warmth I remembered. He was no longer my father, the enabler. He was just her accomplice. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't just going to refuse. I was going to let them burn their own empire to the ground. The party was in full swing when my father clinked a champagne flute, calling for everyone's attention. Thank you all for coming. He boomed. A king in his castle. But tonight is not just about me. It's about family. And the legacy we build together. Jessica slid next to him, placing a hand on his arm. That's why we want to celebrate a wonderful gesture of family unity. Emma has decided to support her brother Caleb's future by transferring her company shares to him. She beamed at me, holding out the documents and a pen. Every eye in the room turned to me. I walked forward, my heart beating a slow, steady rhythm of pure ice. I haven't agreed to anything, I said, my voice clear and calm in the sudden silence. Jessica's smile tightened. Don't be modest, darling. Tell everyone. I looked directly at my father. No, I said simply. I will not be signing those papers. The air crackled with tension. My father's face turned a dangerous shade of red. Emma, we discussed this, he hissed. You demanded it. I corrected him. There's a difference. Jessica saw her chance to play the victim. She's trying to humiliate us. After everything we've done for her, my father, goaded and embarrassed, puffed up his chest. What even is this silly company, he spat. Nexus AI. Some silly computer hobby. You're acting like a child. And you'll be treated like one. He pointed a trembling finger at me. You are grounded until you learn to respect this family and apologize to your stepmother. Stunned silence, followed by a ripple of incredulous laughter. The humiliation was absolute. A public execution of my dignity. But I felt nothing. No shame. No anger. Just a profound, chilling sense of release. All right, I said, my voice even. I'm grounded. I placed my untouched champagne glass on a passing tray. I suppose I should go to my room now. Don't you dare walk away from me, he roared. But I was already moving. Walking past the shocked faces of his colleagues, out the grand front door, and into the cool night air. I didn't go to my room. I went to my car, got in, and drove away from that house, for the last time. From the safety of my secret apartment downtown, the one they never knew existed, I made 2 calls. The first was to my lawyer, Gabriella Rossi. The second was to my mentor, David Chen. They did it, I said. It's time. Let's begin. The next morning, Robert and Jessica woke up to a satisfyingly empty room. My bed was made. My things were gone. And a single house key sat on the nightstand. They smirked, assuming I'd run off to a friend's house to sulk. They believed they had won, that I had finally learned my place. Their victory breakfast was interrupted by the frantic arrival of their corporate lawyer, looking like he'd seen a ghost. And right behind him was my attorney, Gabriella Rossi. She was the opposite of frantic. She was a vision of calm, lethal competence in a perfectly tailored suit, carrying a briefcase that seemed to radiate power. She didn't wait for an invitation. She walked into their living room, the very same room where I had been humiliated less than 12 hours before, and set her briefcase down. Mr. and Mrs. Collins, she began, her voice smooth as steel. I am Gabriella Rossi. I represent Emma Collins. My father scoffed. Represents her. For what? A childish tantrum. Gabriella ignored him, opening her briefcase. I'm here to discuss the $100 million partnership agreement between Collins Lux Homes and Vanguard Capital. My father's smugness faltered. What about it? The signing is tomorrow. It's a done deal. Not kite, Gabriella said, sliding a document across the coffee table. I draw your attention to clause 16.3. The key personnel clause. Robert scanned it, his brow furrowed in confusion. Jessica peered over his shoulder, her expression impatient. It states, Gabriella continued, her voice cutting through their ignorance, that the entire agreement is contingent upon the direct oversight and signature of the chief architect of Nexus AI, whose technology is the sole reason Vanguard is investing in the first place. Robert looked up, completely lost. So get them on the phone. What does this have to do with Emma? Gabriella leaned forward, delivering the final, devastating blow. Mr. Collins, your daughter, the woman you grounded last night, *, is times the chief architect of Nexus AI. She is the co-founder, She owns the technology. And without her signature, your $100 million deal is nothing but a worthless pile of paper. The silence that followed was absolute. I could almost hear the sound of their world shattering. The scapegoat they thought they had crushed was the architect of their salvation. And they had just publicly declared war on her. The power in the room didn't just shift, it completely reversed. Panic, raw and pure, washed over their faces as they finally understood the magnitude of their mistake. The consequences were not slow. They were a tidal wave. Before Gabriella had even left their driveway, the first email landed in my father's inbox. It was from David Chen, the CEO of Vanguard Capital. The subject line was brutally simple: termination of agreement. The body of the email was a masterclass in corporate demolition. Vanguard Capital, it read, is officially terminating the partnership with Collins Lux Homes. Effective immediately. Our investment was predicated on the involvement of Nexus AI and its leadership. The recent unprofessional and hostile actions taken by your CEO, Robert Collins, against our key partner, Chief Architect Emma Collins, represents a fundamental breach of integrity. We have lost all confidence in your company's leadership and judgment. The $100 million lifeline was gone. Collins Lux Homes, which had leveraged every asset it had on the promise of this deal, was instantly insolvent. The calls started within the hour. The banks, the creditors, the board members who had seen the rumors swirling online about the disastrous party. The company wasn't just failing, it was in a free fall. My father was locked out of his own office by noon. By the end of the week, the board had forced him to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And that's when the real secret came out. During the mandatory bankruptcy audit, forensic accountants began digging through the company's books. They found more than just bad debt. They found a pattern of systematic fraud. Millions of dollars had been vanishing from corporate accounts for years, carefully funneled into offshore accounts. The trail didn't lead to my father. It led directly to Jessica. She had been embezzling money for years to pay off hundreds of thousands of dollars in online poker debts. Her frantic push to get my shares wasn't just about propping up Caleb. It was a desperate, last-ditch effort to inject enough cash into the company to cover her tracks before Vanguard's due diligence team discovered the black hole she had created. The family's ruin was now complete. Not only had my father lost his company, his reputation, and his fortune, but his wife was now facing federal wire fraud and embezzlement charges. The narcissistic queen of their perfect family was about to trade her designer dresses for a prison jumpsuit. Caleb, the golden child, was left with nothing but the echoes of unearned praise and a future he was completely unprepared for. They hadn't just lost a deal. They had lost everything. Because they'd built their house on a foundation of lies. 6 months later, I sat at the head of a gleaming mahogany table in the Nexus AI boardroom. The scene was a perfect mirror of the one that had destroyed my father. But here, there was no tension. No betrayal. I was surrounded by my team. People who respected me. My mentor, David Chen, sat to my right. And my lead developer, Jasmine, to my left. I picked up a pen and signed the final page of a new $200 million partnership with an international tech conglomerate. A deal far more lucrative than the one my father had lost. The room erupted in applause. This was a team built on mutual respect and shared vision. And our success felt clean. Earned. A few weeks after that, my father requested a meeting. We met at a neutral coffee shop downtown. The man who sat across from me was a ghost. He was thinner, grayer, the arrogance replaced by a hollowed-out weariness. He didn't ask for money or help. He just apologized. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was a start. He admitted he'd been blinded by his own ego and by Jessica's manipulations. I didn't offer him easy forgiveness. Forgiveness wasn't the point. Growth was. I laid out my terms. My non-negotiable boundaries. First, therapy. He had to understand why he allowed himself to become an enabler. Why he was so willing to sacrifice his own daughter. Second, no business. He would never profit from the success he'd once dismissed. Third, he had to own what he did. Publicly and privately. With no excuses. He agreed to everything. Our relationship isn't what it was. And it never will be. It's something new. Something cautious, built on the hard-won foundation of clearly defined boundaries. We have coffee once a month. My father, who has spent my entire life dismissing my career, is ruined because he never understood its value. The room implodes. My mother is sobbing. My father is staring into the abyss of his own financial ruin.